Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I have a very, very special episode for you. We have got Sean Arble and Robin Hiseman on. I'm also joined by Sam Williams.
Hello.
But today we are discussing a Cleeve Hill and everything that can be done to save the golf course at Cleeve Hill. So first of all, chaps, it'd be lovely if you'd introduce yourselves. Sean, if you start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Sean. I'm originally from the States, and I moved to England about 20 years ago, and immediately took the game back up, noticing what kind of great courses you have in this country. So I'm just like any other punter out there, looking to play the back alleys of British golf, and just enjoy the game, just enjoy the walk, enjoy the camaraderie, and the courses.
AKA Detroit golfer.
That's correct, yes.
Funnily enough, you're not the first person to join the pod who's made a hop across the pond, falling out of love with the game, who's come over to England, played some fantastic courses, and it's just given them a completely new lease of life on golf. It's funny that, isn't it? And we don't have that many guests.
And we're also joined by Robin Hiseman. Robin, welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. I'm Robin Hiseman. I'm a golf course architect with European Golf Design. We're the design company of the European Tour and IMG, being a golf architect now for approaching 30 years. Starting off with the Hawtree Company in Oxfordshire, then a few years on my own up in Scotland, and then the last 15 based in Sunningdale down in Berkshire. And but my introduction to Cleeve Hill came when I was did my university degree in Cheltenham. So Cleeve Hill was one of the places we used to go to semi-regularly, up to the top of the hill and learn to play that course quite often in those days. And again, the other courses in the Cotswolds as well, with which it's often associated. It's an amazing place.
And it would be remiss while you're on the pod, Robin, not to also give you congratulations with work at JCB. You're obviously quite involved there, and that's really landed with quite an impact in the golfing world, hasn't it?
It has. It's been fun to see how that's been received. I mean, it's like making a movie in a way. You're working on it for years and years and years before anyone else pays it any attention at all, and then you're not really quite sure how that's going to be received when it goes out there. But it's been open for a couple of years now, and although it's yet to sort of open widely to the public, it's a kind of a members only in play. It's getting a lot of good words in the press, and we're very pleased about that. And we hope in the fullness of time that it might get an outing on the European Tour or some other professional tour and seen more widely, perhaps through the TV screens.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic course, and it's one of the only courses I'm aware of that's pretty much dropped straight into the top 100. So, congratulations! It's quite an achievement.
Thank you. Hope it stays around.
Well, hopefully. Yeah. No, it looks. We're all itching to play. It looks amazing. So, you said that you used to play Cleeve Hill when you were at university. I can imagine, having played it, I can know the answer to this, but has much changed since you played it?
Very little. The 18th greens moved away back from the clubhouse, and for safety reasons. I think the 18th tees also been shuffled around. But no, generally speaking, it's exactly as I remember it back in those days, and it's all the better for that. It's proper rustic golf. It stays close to the ground. And it's just good for the soul being up there on that golf course. It kind of grounds me architecturally when I go back up there to just remember how simple things can be and how playable golf courses can be on that kind of scale and that kind of landscape. It's just, it's always been the first place I want to play in the springtime. When you first get that burst of warm weather in March, April, and that was the case this year. Sean and I were all set to play as our first game together this year, and then Sean was ill, and it was the day that Boris announced the full lockdown, so we had to kind of cancel that for that year. But as soon as we were able to travel again, it was the first place I played this year. And then it's sort of a kind of a calling to get up there every year to get back to Cleeve, even though I live quite a long way away now.
You talk about playability, and I think, Sean, we spoke before the podcast. For people who haven't played Cleeve Hill, playability is one thing that kind of struck me probably more than I would say any golf course I've played. Just for the benefit of our listeners, just kind of how would you articulate that? How would you kind of explain the kind of that sort of playability aspect?
To me, it's we talk about second shot courses, but Cleeve Hill is truly a proper second shot course because there's very rarely an opportunity to lose a golf ball. So you can always find it and hit it, and that's the definition of second shot, isn't it? But also I like the idea of how the hills, the topography of the course really defines how you have to hit your shots. So even though it's wide, you can find yourself in awful spots. You have to really kind of think, I can hit my ball, but this is not the place to come in. So maybe I'll have to lay up, or maybe I'll have to get a bit more creative, use the ground a bit, bounce one in. But you're constantly left with these sorts of decisions. So it's a great place for a beginner to learn the game, I think.
I don't want to put any of you on the spot, chaps, but they're in doing the research on Cleeve Hill, we've got a lot of history in the architecture, and I was wondering whether Sean, whether you had any sort of information on the architect or the way that the course has been built. I know that we've read that Old Tom Morris had a hand in it, and Dr. Alistair Mackenzie. Can you elaborate any further on that?
Well, not a lot to know. Well, at least I don't know a lot about it, but other than there's been a few newspaper articles which confirm that Old Tom Morris was the designer for the course originally, and that probably the 13th green is an original Old Tom Morris green, which makes sense because he would have just laid down a green in an interesting spot. Yeah. And as far as Dr. Mackenzie, it's said that probably the 4th, 5th, 6th might be his holes, the 7th as well. If you look at that green site, that's an interesting scooped out of a quarry. Mm-hmm. So that's been done by somebody purposefully. There's not. I can't find a whole lot of information on the designers. And of course, David Brown, he's one that kept the green originally as well. He was hired. He was an open winner. He taught Queen Victoria how to play golf, and he went to the States and played golf. And sadly, his life ended rather harshly. He came back and he lost his money in the crash in the Great Depression, died penniless. But quite a character.
Isn't he, Sean? Isn't he the guy who he won the Open at Musselburgh, didn't he?
Yeah, they dragged him off the roof, didn't they?
Yeah, he was a roofer.
He's a roofer, and they pulled him off the roof. They were short. Somebody pulled out last minute. And they said, "Well, he's played before," and he ended up winning.
No. I think we've stumbled across one of the greatest Open stories in history here, haven't we?
Yeah, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah, he designed Painswick as well. He laid that out.
Yeah, I thought he did Painswick, yes. He'd be an interesting guy to do some more research on about what courses he was involved with.
When I was doing a little bit of research about Cleeve Hill, when we first heard about the plight of the golf club, which we're hopefully going to get onto shortly, I found an article, Sean, that you had been involved with back in June 2013, where you had listed Cleeve Hill as one of your top 50 courses in the UK and Ireland, and it's quite an accolade, really, to give that to a golf course, isn't it?
It is. It still is comfortably one of my top 50 favorites, because it's as Robin said earlier, it's just such simple layout. Just go play the course. There's no muss, no fuss. Turn up, put your peg in the ground, and hit it. There's very few courses that you can do that these days that are affordable. So yeah, I hold in the highest esteem Cleeve Hill.
And when was it you first heard about the troubles that the club was going through?
Oh, probably a couple of years ago, speaking with a pro, he was saying things aren't going very well. But how it really came to a fore was just as you all heard it. I just heard it. I saw it on an Instagram post from a member, and that's what alerted me to that the doors were actually going to close. So and there's been a pretty good outcry about it. I gather.
I think it's so. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm kind of interested to get you guys' takes on this, but courses like that are totally unique, and maybe there's a new movement in golf course architecture and some of the stuff that golfers are looking for, where they want a more authentic experience. People from America will travel all the way over here and go to the top tip of Scotland to go and play a course like Durness or Brora, where they get that really authentic experience where, you know, they've got kind of sheeps around and everything that goes with that. And yet, for some reason, we've got it, you know, an hour between Birmingham Airport and Heathrow Airport, and it can't be financially viable. And there's something not quite right about it. And I don't know, I'm very conscious. Robin, you're on the pod with us, and, you know, obviously your design company is heavily involved with the European Tour, but is part of some of the beautification of golf courses and maybe what you see on TV, does that almost fly in the face of what Cleeve Hill will always have to be about? And therefore, is that maybe part of the maybe dwindling popularity for the club on what is a stunning plot of land?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not the kind of course that's to everybody's taste. You know, it's exposed, it's rough, it's covered in sheep manure. It's got a lot of things that might turn you off. And I think a lot of, you know, retail golfers, they rather like having the manicured look down in the warm valley down below. I mean, I understand that was originally the Cotswold Hills Golf Club, and they relocated away from Cleeve Hill for perhaps those reasons. That the playing season was quite limited up there, and you know the success of Cleeve Hill is in the hands of the people who live in that area, who have ready access to it, and I think this news that's only really broken in the last week or so has been a bit of a shock to a lot of people. I signed the petition. I think we got about 2,500 signatures on that pretty immediately. But you know, people have got to step up to the plate. A petition is not going to save the golf club. It's money and it's organisation, and it's a future that has a financial viability that's going to save Cleeve Hill Golf Club or Cleeve Hill Golf Course. You know, let's face it, the majority of people who go to Cleeve Hill have very little interest in the golf course. They're there for the walking, the scenery, the mountain biking, all the other things you can do up there. The golf course is, you know, a fairly small proportion of the people who experience Cleeve Hill. But to those people who do experience it that way, it's priceless. Unfortunately, the price point of Cleeve Hill is so low that it's not ever going to be able to break out of this cycle of poverty in a way at the level it's charging at the moment. It's undervalued, and I think quite a lot of golfers might even be put off by it being so cheap. They'll be suspicious of why it's only £15. I mean, we've all been there. We know you'll play other courses for an awful lot more than that, and you won't get a fraction of the enjoyment you'll get out of around at Cleeve Hill. But that's just not widely appreciated. And people are just looking for a different kind of golf these days. They like things to be a lot lusher, a lot greener, a lot less random. That's just sort of the nature of golfers in this country, I think, by and large.
Yeah, well, I categorically agree with you in terms of the price. I mean, I think that golfers will look at it and think, well, it can't be any good because it's only £15. And actually, it's in a really tricky spot, isn't it? Because it can't really charge a huge amount more when a lot of the maintenance is done by the sheep.
Yes.
And you're walking around, and if you were paying an arbitrary number like £50, for instance, but if you were paying a number like that, you wouldn't expect the condition that the course is in. But it is a lot better than £15, and it's in a really, really tricky position, I feel, as a golf club to get itself out of that.
It's in a perilous position, yeah.
I mean, we were chatting to a friend of the podcast, a guy out on the West Coast called Chris Trott, who works for TaylorMade, and he plays at a golf course out in California called Goat Hill.
9-holer?
Sure, no, it's a short course. I think it's an 18-holer, but it's like a short course, about 4,700, something like that. But that was, I think that's John Ashworth, who essentially stepped in and rescued it. And what they've done is kind of strip it back to its roots and almost turn the experience of a golf club on its head. And it's interesting looking at it, which is at Cleeve Hill, the golf course is really probably the primary reason to go there. You enjoy the views, you enjoy the walk, you'll have a nice time playing. You probably won't go necessarily for the clubhouse, but the clubhouse is the financial drain on what they've got. So it's in that kind of really difficult predicament. And, trotting out the West Coast is sort of like, well, you just got bought out. They completely flipped the model on its head so that it became a much more raw golfing experience. It becomes much more about kind of attracting a different demographic, whether that's completely changing, things like dress code, things like, different formats, different pace of play, playing 6-hole loops, all of that kind of good stuff. And it certainly gets you wondering in that kind of, thinking about it in that way, does the model maybe need to change to rescue it? I don't know. I mean, just kind of a thought really more than anything.
Well, you'd like to think that, that someone it can take that on and maybe find a price point that's better for its future, but which isn't going to exclude those people whom you're trying to attract in the first instance. But the root of it all, it is a really good golf course. I mean, it's not by any means a scrappy golf course out there. It's a proper test from 1 to 18. And there are holes out there that would very happily sit on some of our UK's finest links courses. I think, Sean knows it better than I do, but I think the 12th hole, for example, the uphill par 4 there is a really fine golf hole. You could imagine that sitting quite comfortably at Hoylake or, Royal Porthcawl or someone like that. It's got that sort of feel to it. It's not a Mickey Mouse golf course, and it deserves to survive on its merit as a good golf course. It's just trying to find a way in which that's going to be sustainable for the next generations, as it has been up to date.
Just while you're on some of those holes, I mean, I obviously checked out before we went and played, and I played it when I was very young, but I just couldn't remember the holes as well. And things like the green sites on the 13th and those 2 par 3s you play back to back on the back 9 they are outrageously good golf holes. They are, and they're absolutely stunning, aren't they? I mean, I've never stood on a green like the 13th there. It's actually bloody difficult if you don't go in through the right entrance to that green. You are really in trouble. And those par 3s are just fantastic holes.
They are. That's not the end of it. I mean, there's so much variety on that golf course. And some of the kind of the high tee shots you get on there, sort of 9 and 18, are just thrilling. 9 and 10 and 18, you're just coming from the top of the hill down to the valleys far below. You could never get tired of that.
It's quite interesting because Sam and I went to do a little bit of filming there and hopefully try and raise a bit of awareness. And I think we got up to maybe the 3rd or 4th. And I said, Sam, I've got to get the drone up. This is good. And he just said, hold fire, mate. It's going to get a lot better. And as you raise and meander your way up the hill and you get to the 9th, the 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just epic hole after epic hole. And then you can climb back up the hill. And the 13th, where you get that big reveal of probably the most outrageous green I have ever seen in my life. In terms of part of this is trying to raise awareness of trying to get people to go and visit it and hopefully save it. What are the standout holes for you, Sean, when you play it that you really think, these are the ones I'm looking forward to?
I like the 5th a lot because it has a terrific sort of stepped fairway, but it's completely natural with a great green site next to the quarry. And as you mentioned earlier, all the par 3s are worthy. They're all very, very good. Robin mentioned the 12th and the 13th. Those are excellent holes, but the 5th is the one for me, which really stands out as the premier par 4 on the course.
It's the ultimate second shot hole as well, isn't it? Because you've really got 150 yards either side of the centre of the fairway, I think, where you've got no issues in terms of lie off the tee. But then the green complex is so tight and undulating that you've really got to have a good angle, and you've got to think about the distance you're going to leave yourself in to score. And I mean, that's really, it's kind of, that's almost the spirit of St Andrews in many ways, really, when you think about it. That's kind of what it's about, that kind of whole, strategic, thinking your way around, where do you want to be? And as you say, the par 3s, that 6th hole that, again, you play, it's not quite a quarry, but it's sort of got all that sort of chocolate drop mounding that sort of naturally sits there below the green site. It's another fantastic par 3. just kind of thinking as well, before we started recording, we were talking about it, and you think there's so many parts of England where you want to go and play some great golf courses. And, let's just pull the Northwest Coast up because that's a good example where you can go and play 6 or 7 epic golf courses in quick succession. They all want £180, £200 generally for a green fee. In and around the Cotswolds and over around kind of just sort of Southwest Midlands and out towards Wales, you can really do quite a few there, can't you? And they're all extremely modestly priced. Are there any other kind of, if people were traveling from a bit further afield and thinking about maybe doing a 2 or 3 dayer and playing a couple more courses, are there any others you'd recommend, Sean, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of Cotswold escarpment is quite a unique landscape in the UK. And, if you were starting at Cleeve as the northern course and, within half an hour you're down at Painswick, which is one of the most remarkable golf courses you will ever see in your life. And, it's maybe the quirkiest 18-hole course in planet golf. It's a real experience, Painswick. I love it a bit. I lived in Painswick for a year during college, so I got to know that really well. And it's completely different to Cleeve. It's so much more intimate. It's like a little tiny pine valley in the way it's so intricate, but laid out on this kind of St Andrews-like shared fairway all the way out to the far end, and you come back in again with completely different holes facing in the opposite direction. Blind shots and ridiculous earthworks from the old quarrying. It's a stunning little golf course. And then you head another 15 minutes further south, and you on Minchinhampton Common, and you've got the old Minchinhampton Common course up there, which is probably the most rustic golf course in England, with sheep, horses. What else we got up there? Donkeys, cows,
plenty of cows.
And again, another classic 19th century golfing experience. So you have those 3 totally unique courses almost in a line down the Cotswold escarpment there, and you could head off to Broadway a little bit further north, Stinchcombe Hill a little bit further south, and you could do all that from the same lodgings overnight, no problem at all. And lovely town of Cheltenham as well as a sort of base. And a lot of people do appreciate those 3 courses, but they're not really marketed as a package. That the area itself isn't really marketed as a golf destination, and you can understand why people are heading off to Devon or Cornwall or further north. It's it's a little bit like the kind of northeast of England. Not many people stop there to play golf, but there's some cracking good courses when you do. But those 3 courses have given me a lot of pleasure over the years, and I never tire of going back. And I think if people haven't experienced them, they really should, because this story at Cleeve Hill might not be where the story ends for at least one more of those clubs. So it's perilous times, and these places need to be played and appreciated, and if they are, they'll survive.
It sounds like we're going to whet the appetite of a few people to come and play golf in the area, which I think, certainly from our point of view, having played at Cleeve Hill and loved it, and really kind of sad to see the news, was certainly a primary goal of the podcast. I think we can probably all collectively agree at the same time that going on and signing the petition would be a really good step forward, and we hope that maybe the golfing community at large can kind of maybe help perhaps save it in one sense or another. Like you say, Robin, it almost needs that point of intervention where someone steps in and is prepared to probably take a bit of a gamble on doing it, because when one of these things go and you've got precedent, you know where do you draw the line then after that? So,
well, I kind of look at the analogy a little way. If you look at all the people who've got together to resurrect heritage railways around the UK, and the comparative complication of doing that compared to actually keeping going a golf club that's already there. It can be done if there's a collective will, maybe as a charitable trust. Who knows quite exactly how it'll be formulated, but I can, if people want this to survive and can organize themselves into a body that is capable of running it commercially, then Tewkesbury Borough Council will have to listen to them. We'll have to entertain them as a serious bidder. But that's kind of got to happen quite quickly.
it's strange, isn't it? Because if you look at sort of the way the Britain runs its history, and you look at, you have sort of listed buildings, for instance, that you can't touch because there's something to do with history there, and you don't touch it because that's a bit of our history. And we're faced as a sport with the pretty imminent possibility that a bit of our history is going to be just taken away from us. And it's strange that the country would be so precious about certain things and be so cavalier with something that matters so much to a sport. And it's, like you say, it's just, we need to do something, hopefully, that we can get this golf course to stay in touch. But the problem is we don't know what it is. Hopefully just raising awareness will do something for it, at least.
I wrote an article about 20 years ago for one of the golf magazines. It was talking about, kind of creating almost like a listed building equivalent for golf courses, more as an educational resource than maybe a preservational resource. But although people have written various books on golf architecture, and they'll have their listings at the back of their favorite holes, favorite bunkers, all this kind of thing, as a sort of semi-official compendium of golf courses in the UK that are worth study. And at various times over intervening years, it's been kind of sort of discussed that this should be something that should happen, just so people can appreciate, have a reference to go to, and it's put together by people who know the whole country, Sean being kind of primary amongst that, and pointing out these courses that they may not necessarily be aware of. I mean, I work in the golf architectural trade, but I would say is a fairly low percentage of people who are even aware Cleeve Hill golf course exists within that profession. But it's just about education, really. If there were such a listing, then a golf course like Cleeve Hill would be very near the top of the list for courses to go on that, because it's just such a unique landscape, a unique environment for golf, and a very traditional one. It's one of the closest remaining examples of a golf course that mirrors how golf was started centuries ago. It's exactly how it would have been, and it's the kind of course that almost begs to be played with hickory equipment, because that's what it was set out to do. It's not a golf course that has aged or dated or gone out of fashion. It's timeless.
And you do get that as well. You can't go longer the green. You can tell it was built for hickories and gutties and things like that, because you go longer the greens and invariably you are absolutely toast. So if there is a bit of advice I can give anyone who goes and plays them.
Yeah, if you can find it in a quarry.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say about your awareness thing, because I know that Tom Doak has given the course a 7, which is pretty high praise for Tom Doak, to be fair. And when this the plight of Cleeve Hill first came out, I know Mike Clayton came up and he said, "Where is this course? I've never even heard of it." And Mike Clayton's obviously big in the industry. So, like you say, there is an awareness that needs to be brought to it. And in terms of the approach, I don't know what that soil is made of, but it does not hold a golf ball. It just bounces forever. It's so difficult.
What's interesting is that they're kind of the same soil for all three courses: Painswick, Cleeve Hill, and Minchinhampton Old, but they're completely different golf courses. Just from one end of the earth to the other, they're nothing like each other in terms of the designs. It's incredible, but they're on the same sort of soil. They're all three worth playing, but to me, I think Cleeve Hill is my favorite of the three.
Painswick's a short course, isn't it? Is it the one? It's a relatively short course. I mean, I'm looking at it here. Friend's been in touch in terms of the scorecards. It's about 4.8 off the backs or something like that. It's a real sort of neat, quirky, small course, right?
Yeah, but you'll do well to play to your handicap.
Yeah. Oh, I was never saying it was easy, Sean.
It's a tough little course. It's a tough course. Yeah. Matter of fact, you shouldn't even say little. It's just a tough course. So easy to lose your golf ball around there.
We talked about the golf in the Northwest. The three courses that you guys have mentioned there, with Painswick, Cleeve Hill, and Minchinhampton, you can play them for a combined fee of £100 at peak time. I mean,
No, with that,
£3
yeah.
for golf.
Yeah. Mitch Hampton's, I think paying to 20 or 25 pounds.
25, yeah.
And
Mentioned
maybe a bit more.
commands a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can't get golf for that sort of money. You can't get it anywhere,
It's incredible.
apparently, in Gloucestershire.
I mean, so that's frightening, isn't it, when you think of the value? So,
Well, the green staff work 24 hours a day and they don't need paying, so that's probably why they keep the price down.
perfect.
Well, honestly, chaps, we thank you for your time. Before we let you leave, have you got any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to give our listeners about the course or the area at all?
Well, to me, I think we have to, when you play courses like Cleeve Hill, you have to remember golf is an outdoor game and not to take it too seriously, not to take the conditions too seriously. Just enjoy the day, enjoy the beauty of it. And it is a lovely golf course. Just don't take the conditioning as all that serious. It's just, it's just a bit of a knockabout. And you're not going to find many better places than Cleeve Hill to do that. The scenery is just stunning. And as Robin said, for 15 or 20 pounds, it's unbeatable value. So get down there and play it.
I think, we've said it is a seriously good golf course in its own right. And that's sort of kind of the inward looking view of what the golf there is all about. But looking outwards, once you kind of get to the top of the escarpment at that 13th hole and for the holes playing back towards the clubhouse, I mean, that's nothing short of the most spectacular views on any golf course in the British Isles on a clear day. I don't know what the expanse is, but you can see well down into the Bristol Channel past the Severn Bridge. You can see deep into Wales and the Brecon Beacons, and you can see all the way up to the Malvern Hills, Birmingham and beyond. It's an extraordinary panorama. So, take time to pause and take all that in, because it's an extraordinary landscape, and it's a privilege to be playing golf on top of that hill. And how you're playing really doesn't matter. It's all about the experience. But, you'll never come off that golf course with anything other than the biggest smile on your face for having had a wonderful time with the golf clubs in your hand. And I hope everybody who's even the slightest bit tempted will take the trip down there and see it for themselves, because they won't be disappointed.
Robin, as a parting words, I think when we first spoke, you talked about, because it's very linksy in its feel, and I think you it has a saying that goes with it in terms of its altitude, doesn't it? Am I right?
Yeah, I'll name credit for that, because there's a golf course in Wales called Pennard, very great golf course in Wales called Pennard, and their tagline is the links in the sky. Well, if Pennard's the links in the sky, then Cleeve is the links in the clouds. And not from above them.
Funny you say that. I played in cloud there on more than one occasion. Very low cloud, ladies. And that's quite an experience to hit out into the cloud and have no idea where your ball is going.
But on the flip side of that, Sean, when the cloud's down in the valley and you're up there in the sunshine, it's like playing in outer space almost. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Those white stones by the quarry, the huge quarry along 17, are there for a reason. When the cloud comes low, make sure you don't walk into that quarry.
I've seen a YouTube video of someone going over that. Yeah, it's not recommended.
No, it's a pretty deep fall. I must be about 40 foot.
Yeah.
One other thing I would say about Cleeve Hill is that I think it's a great success in terms of using common land for multiple recreational uses. It's amazing how it all works. How if you're respectful for the walkers, and the walkers are respectful to the golfers, that it all works. It's fine. It works beautifully to use the land for all these purposes at one time. And for me, it's totally changed how I think about golf when I play these golf courses on common land. It's completely altered how I look at the game. And I think for the better, that golf's got to open their gates and let people in. And that's what Cleeve Hill does as good as anybody.
Absolutely, Sean. I think you're 100% right. And perfect parting words, I think, for this podcast. Sean, Robin, thank you so much for joining us. And it's been a pleasure to discuss Cleeve Hill with you. And hopefully somewhere down the line, we can all tee up a ball together at Cleeve Hill and and enjoy our round up there.
Hope so.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Sam. Tom, good to see you again, Robin.
Okay, you too, mate. See you
Watch
soon.
this.